Hey everybody, this is Noah from Skillet AI, and I'm super excited to walk you through this latest build. We're calling this the LinkedIn idea generator, but really it's just a content idea generator. I write a lot on LinkedIn. A lot of times I like to have what I'm writing, speak to the conversations I'm having or what I'm thinking about any given day, but it's also really useful to sort of put my finger on the pulse of what's happening in the world, what's happening in the news, in my industry of marketing in particular. And I want to make sure that what I'm writing about is relevant to people and timely. So this is a tool that I think is a really valuable way to figure out what's happening in the news, but to leverage AI and to leverage N8N and make it a lot easier. So I'm going to do a quick walkthrough. We have another video for the full tutorial of how to set this up, but I'll just start by walking you through what's here. So you can see all the way to the left, we have a daily trigger, right? So this is going to run automatically one time per day, every morning at 8 a.m. And then there's a whole bunch of, where did it go? There's a whole bunch of these vertical kind of pairings. What is this? So these are each individual RSS feeds. I don't know if you're familiar with RSS feeds, but I'll just quickly show you. If I do a search for ad exchanger RSS, what you can see is that an RSS feed is essentially just a stream of all the different posts that they've made. For some reason, that's not what I was expecting. Okay, this is a true RSS feed. It's a little bit hard to read for a person, but that's what it is. It's just a feed of data. And essentially, if you parse through what's in here, it's just individual posts. What's the date of it? What's the language? What's the content? Who's the author? It's just a whole stream of all these posts. So not that useful for a person to read, but very useful to plug in that feed into N8N. So what is this? So this is a node where we're basically opening up that feed from a news publisher. So this is Ad Exchanger. And what you can see is that all of these different fields are now populated. The publish date, the content snippet, etc. So what we have is Ad Exchanger, Verve, TechCrunch, Tech Republic, HubSpot, Mashable, IPG, Media Lab, Duct Tape Marketing. All right, so there's quite a few. I think I have 8 or 9. I think there's 9 now. So there's 9 different publishers that every time this runs, it's going to pull in a feed of their news stories. And then next to it is a set node where essentially I want to make sure that all the fields are common. Usually RSS is pretty standard. There might be little subtle differences from one publication to the next. So what this does is it ensures that no matter what the format is going in, it's always going to go out with title, content snippet, pub date, content channel, etc. All right. So all of these feeds are going to produce a list of news stories. Now they're all getting formatted. Here I have a merge node. The merge node is basically saying, even though there's 9 inputs, there's going to be 1 output. So all of a sudden I've got hundreds and hundreds of news stories. So as we continue down, we have a very simple filter that just says, look, if this is too old, we don't want it. So if it's more than 3 days old, filter it out. And then there's a series of an aggregate, an edit, and a code block that are basically just getting the data right. So the same way that we wanted to formalize the fields, we're doing something similar here where we have a bunch of inputs. We want to make sure that the output is just being structured correctly. So here we have like all these different individual items, and then here it's being standardized into one object. Again, with the edit fields, oh, this is a little bit different. So here with the edit fields, we're populating 2 different fields. So I've written a lot of posts on LinkedIn. This is a list of like 100 of my posts. So why do I need this? If I feed in all this text, what it does is it can become a training data set that teaches the AI node we're about to hand off to, how do I write? What do I like to write about? What's my writing style? What's my tone? How do I structure my posts? So this is a whole bunch of sample posts. I happen to have it in a fairly structured way. It doesn't really matter. With an AI, it can kind of parse through whatever. So imagine your version. You might take a Word doc. You might take a Google doc and just paste in all the things you've ever written. Maybe you take a voice recording and you just sort of talk for an hour. It doesn't really matter. It just matters that you can somehow get that content into this set node. And then I even put a bio together that just sort of talks about who I am. I think I pulled this out of LinkedIn. This is pretty easy. I took my whole LinkedIn page, I put it in a chat sheet, and I said, turn this into a bio. All right. So what this is doing is it's taking a writing sample and a bio and it's structuring it. This is doing additional formatting. And ultimately what we're passing into OpenAI is all this information. All right. So let's look. We have a prompt that's basically saying, analyze all these news stories. For each story, structure a certain way, right? And then here in the system prompt, we're basically explaining, I want you to figure out which of these topics are relevant to me. All right. So imagine if on any given day there's 200 news stories, maybe 5 of them, maybe 10 of them are super relevant to what I like. And if I were to take the time to read all 200, how would I decide which ones interest me? Well, I want the AI to do that for me. So by teaching it how I write and by teaching it who I am in my bio, it's now being asked to make that determination. And then the output of that is getting formatted again, standardized. It's being written to Google Sheets. So each row of a Google Sheet is basically going to say, here's the unique ID, the date, the published date, the channel, the link, the topic, the angle, the hook. So all of this analysis, why it picked the post, what I should write about, how I should write about it, that's all being put into Google Sheets. And then it's being translated into HTML. And then I can send an email to myself that says once a day at 8:01, hey, of all the news that happened in the last 3 days, here's 10 or so posts that might interest you. All right. And because we put it into Google Sheets, each one of those items in my email, I can click on, I can open up the original post, or I can open up the second set of this action, right? So the second row down here is a webhook, and I'm handing off to the webhook the unique ID of that row in the Google Sheet. And then it reopens that row, it reprocesses it, and then it says to OpenAI, hey, now I want you to actually write about this. Based on how this writing sample looks, based on who this author is, now actually write a draft and then email that. So this is pretty cool, right? So in summary, it's scanning the news, it's filtering, it's prioritizing, it's coming up with a whole bunch of different angles, and then it's sending to me. All right, so let's actually run this workflow. I have this data pinned. I'm going to unpin it. This does take a moment, so I'm probably going to edit everything moving a little bit faster. It takes about 2 minutes for this OpenAI one to run. So let's get this started. All right, and you can see bang, 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 bang. It just did all the RSS feeds. It very quickly gets it here. And now I'm going to pause as it runs the AI interpretation. All right, so OpenAI did take about 2 minutes. Now it's pushing it to Google Sheets. And now it's going to send me a message. So I'm going to go open up my Google Sheets and open up my email, and let's look at what it sent over. Okay, so this is the Google Sheet that it's writing to. I've run this a couple different times, but what you can see is each row, there's a unique identifier for this post. There's a unique identifier that's specific to the parent, which is like the set of every time this runs each day. There's a date stamp. So today's the 11th. These are some tests I did yesterday. Here's the one from today. So just now it wrote, let's count this. This is 12 new rows from Ad Exchange or HubSpot, Adweek, Mashable. Here's the original link. Here's all of what it thought, the topic, the angle, the hook, why it picked it. So this is great. This is super helpful. And then there's a unique take action link. So now let's look at the email that it sent. Okay, so your N8N news scrape is ready. So here's the email. These are going to correspond to all the same rows that we just saw in that Google Sheet, but this is formatted. It's easy to read. So that function code block basically made all this look really simple to read. And if I'm like, I don't care about the trade desk, but I'm really interested in TV's powerful halo effect, I can click this link, read original, and it opens up the original article that I can read. And then if I click start automation, it's going to trigger the webhook. Let's do that next. All right, so I'm going to click right here to get this webhook in listen mode. And now with this Mind the TV data gap, I'm going to click start automation. This hands off to the webhook and it says workflow has started. Great. And now you can see it's handed off. It pulled the data from Google Sheets. In this edit field, again, it's getting my writing sample. And now this is going to take another moment to run, but it's going to send me a second message with a draft of an article that, I'm going to need to edit to make it really feel my own. But this is a much faster process for me to think about what to write. Let's go take a look at the draft it sent. All right. So before it had your N8N news scrape is ready. Now my draft LinkedIn post is ready. And here's what it wrote. CTV is growing fast, but the data proving its impact is still missing in action. Quick playbook to patch the holes before next quarter. Run this, do that, blah, blah, blah. So this is a style of how I write posts. Here's what's really cool. If you are thinking about using this N8N flow, you can tailor it to your own sensibility. So what are all the different things you can tailor? For one, these are different advertising, marketing, RSS feeds. That's what I like to write about. You might like to write about science. You could pull in RSS feeds that are all from science magazines or science publications or newsletters or whatever, right? So really the point is any feed that's going to show you in real time, right? This runs once a day. In real time, like what's happening? What's the content? Maybe it's Twitter, right? Whatever floats your boat. But you have all these inputs, and then you're running a series of filters. You're having AI interpret what's most interesting, and it should be tailored to you. So based on your choice of RSS feeds, your writing sample, your bio, this is going to be totally distinctive and native to you. Because the problem with if you just go into OpenAI and you say, write me a blog post about X, it's going to be pretty generic. No one really wants to read that. That's part of the AI slop that just saturates LinkedIn. If you're feeding it stories that matter to you, you're teaching it which stories are most relevant to you, and then it writes a draft in your voice, I still need to go and refine that and take it to the finish line. But this is like having a really good intern who every morning says, hey boss, I read all the newspapers. Here's 12 things that might interest you. And then I pick one and then it says, all right, cool. I wrote a draft. You finish it. All right. So that's our content idea generator. I think it's super powerful. I hope you put this to use. Can't wait to see what everyone builds. Thanks for tuning in.